Twilight Syndrome. It's an incredibly intriguing series of games that stars young high schoolers as they investigate rumors of paranormal phenomenon like young people do in real life. I've previously taken you through the first two games in the series, the Twilight Syndrome duology. At the end of the second game, we learn that the trio's series of adventures have been partially orchestrated by some kind of entity so that it could lure them into the Dusk World, so that when they left again, they wouldn't end up back in their own world, but a mirror dimension where things are almost the same, but a dimension where supernatural phenomenon don't exist. Why they were brought here, and why Mika, the airhead of the trio, is the only one that remembers their old world and their past lives, well, I suppose we'll have to dive in to find out. So sit back and relax and let me, for probably the first time in English, take you on a journey through Moonlight Syndrome. Rio says that he had a dream and he asks his sister what she's doing here. She says that he's always running away from how he feels about her and that as a result that he leads a gloomy life. He says that that's not true. He says that he'll take care of her and she says that he doesn't understand and that he should take care of himself and that she will still protect him. Rio contemplates if he's a pervert for how he feels about her, and as he's thinking about this, someone walks into the room that he's in and starts taunting him, telling him that he is weak and that weakness is unforgivable. It's Sumio, his sister's on-again, off-again boyfriend, and Rumi's older brother, Rio's on-again, off-again girlfriend. Rio asks him if he's lost his shit and tells him to get fucking lost. Sumio taunts Rio and says that he understands why Kyoko tried to distance herself so hard from Rio and his bad energy. Rio tells him to stop trying to analyze him and that it's not his fault that Kyoko ended their relationship, and then tells him to get the fuck out. Sumio shoots off a couple more colorful remarks and then he does as Rio wishes and walks out of the room. Rio himself heads out and he bumps into Rumi on the street. She says that she isn't here to see him or attempt to rekindle their flame because Rio isn't worth chasing after. Rio says that Sumio just taunted him and asked what she thinks about him acting like that. She says that she doesn't really care, just like Rio doesn't really care about her, and that she thinks that he used her as a stand-in for someone, and that being with him was like being alone in an alleyway, like he always saw right through her and didn't really care for her. Rio says that that's not true and that their relationship ended because they couldn't agree on anything, to which Rumi of course disagrees. Rumi begins to talk about back when they were happy, the simpler times, and Rio says that those times they never happened, not as she remembers them, and that she's stuck in the memory of the past. Rumi, like her brother earlier, calls him a weakling and then storms off. Rio then heads inside the club, the Lost Highway. That seems a little on the nose given what happened in the last chapter. Sumio is hosting a techno party in the basement, and Rio, for whatever reason, wants to be there. He walks through the club and chats up a girl, or rather the girl chats him up, and he doesn't really say much. She says that he must be the strong silent type and asks him why he's here, since he doesn't look like the type that's into techno. She introduces herself as Yayoi and tells Rio to come find her upstairs later. With nothing better to do, that's what Rio does, and as he makes his way through the group of people, he overhears them talking about things that we experienced while investigating the rumors in the first two games, like the explosion in the bunker, MF's suicide, Hanako-san, and Seeki's gang terrorizing people, but of course without mentioning any of the actual supernatural aspects of those encounters, leaving it up for us to decide if that's because they didn't happen in this timeline, or because Mika, for once in her life, kept her mouth shut about something. One of the people in the crowd mentions that after the Seiki thing, the school brought in a Danish management team to take over, and they apparently eliminated all the bullying and got all of the students' grades up, so yay to the Danish education system, I suppose. While Rio is making his way through the crowd, a woman recognizes him and asks him what he's doing here, since he's not really the clubbing type, and he replies that, well, he likes that no one bothers him here. and it seems that she is here for a similar reason, as she replies that she is here to lose herself in the crowd for a while. Ryo says his goodbyes and continues his search for the mystery woman who told him to meet her upstairs. When he finally spots her, she says that he sure took his time, but she says that it's okay though, and that she will make him forget everything about Kyoko. That last remark catches Ryo off guard. He doesn't remember bringing up that name. It's almost like she notices that he caught that, and before he can think about it too much, she tells him to follow her, and he does, into a room off to the side. Inside, Yayoi is nowhere to be seen, but Sumio is sitting in a chair, and he continues berating Ryo where he left off earlier. Ryo has had enough and begins to leave, but Yayoi comes out of the shadows and begs him not to go. He does so anyways, or rather he tries to. When he yanks the door handle to get out, it doesn't budge. Someone locked him inside. Sumio then tells Yayoi to proceed, and she walks up to Ryo and tells him that she truly loves him and that it's for the best. Ryo notices that Yayoi is holding a bloody paper bag. As Ryo begins to ask what all of this is, Sumio replies that it's revenge. It's revenge for what Ryo did to him. And he says that Ryo did something to him, took something from him, and that the thing that Ryo took is Kyoko. He says he lost her because he knows what her and Ryo did together. Yayoi drops the paper bag on the floor and something spills out. Something with hair. While Ryo tries to understand what he's seeing, Sumio slips out of the room and Ryo finds himself being the one sitting in the chair now. Yayoi stands over him and she says that she would choose him over Sumio if he asked. She tells him that she can be his Kyoko if he becomes her Sumio. But Ryo doesn't seem to be paying much attention. He looks passed out almost, like he's in a daze. Outside we see the girl that Ryo was chatting up earlier, the one he went to school with. She walks up to Sumio and tells him that their child is crying and that she hears it in her dreams. Sumio is confused and tells the woman that they have never met before. She tells him that he's making a fool of her and that it's time for him to pay for his sins, and then she sets herself on fire. She exclaims that she's gonna take him with her, and then they both burn to death, while Sumio just laughs maniacally. Back in the room, Yayoi tells Ryo that they will meet again, and that she will make him happy. She then steps outside the room and sees both Sumio and the mystery woman on the floor, burnt to a crisp. We're now outside, but probably not in the real world. Ryo walks up to Rumi and she's happy. She realizes that they are in her memory of the past. She talks about just enjoying life and looking up at the clouds, and then a voice yells out for Ryo to come check out something. It's Kyoko, and she's caught a cicada. After she's done telling him all about it, she asks what's wrong. But before he can answer, she says that she saw him talk to Rumi and that it looked like a delicate conversation, and then she tells him to talk to the other guy that is here. The guy starts talking about the majesty of nature and how we humans have become polluted, not just physically but also mentally. It's Sumio, and he continues telling Ryo that he can't let himself become polluted. He has to live an honest life and be honest with himself and those around him. This is definitely a rose-tinted memory of the past. This is how we all think things were when they were good and simple before it all got too complicated. Back in the real world, Ryo heads out of the club and makes his way through the crowd of traumatized clubgoers, and he runs into Rumi. Her mood has shifted. She says that she's fine, and she tells Ryo that her brother had started saying something that had become basically his catchphrase. It was, "I'm going to die." And she says that he was ready for the end. Ryo, like always, says nothing, but I'm not sure he could say anything. Later, he's back at his place and the phone rings. It's his sister, and Ryo tells her that something has happened. And she says that she knows. Ryo apologizes and says that it's his fault. She responds by saying she has nowhere to run and that she will be next. Ryo asks what she means, and then she just responds that Ryo shouldn't get involved with Sumio. To which Ryo replies, "He's dead." She doesn't acknowledge this, like she hasn't really acknowledged anything in the conversation so far, and she tells him to stay safe and then hangs up. We then hear sounds of the crash that killed her, so I guess she was right. She was next.